My name is Lawrence Beery, and I'm an advisor for a student newspaper. For me, it's been a 22-year experience, often rewarding, often frustrating, often both the same day. The Grand Valley Langhorn is a twice-weekly broadsheet and includes the langhorn.com website and mobile delivery. There is no full-time staff. Editors cope with classes, deadlines, and dropped assignments. The business staff copes with sales, billing, and payroll. I'm an associate professor and get a 2-course release per year for advising. So the Langhorn is a crucible. Lots of responsibility, lots of pressure, lots of chances to fail, lots of opportunity for student leadership. It's a bootstrap operation. It's a student-run operation, and I try to keep it that way. My overarching advising philosophy is to foster a collaborative environment where students can succeed, often beyond their individual expectations. I give direction, but I don't direct, unless I have to. I critique without a hammer, unless I have to. I reject prior review unless I'm asked. Now, this almost never happens. I stand up for and stand behind staff in public, but I frankly express concerns in private executive staff meetings. I like to work behind the scenes unless formal action is required. I encourage staff to annually review its constitution and mission statements and its staff manual. There are always needed updates. So essentially, I believe in short and long-term strategic plans for both business and editorial missions of the Langhorn. And I believe in a flexible strategic operating budget. It needs to be realistic and reviewed with great regularity. The Langhorn would not have been able to grow from a weekly tabloid with 3 Apple computers and a wax machine to today's multimedia content delivery operation without generations of student editors and business staff buying into a vision of what the newspaper could be. And students did aspire to lofty goals, and they did agree to sacrifices. For example, about 8 years ago, staff agreed to begin diverting some advertising revenue into a fund that would eventually be used to reward hardworking, high-achieving staff. Today, the Langhorn Merit Awards is an endowed scholarship that will award a minimum of $2,000 to staff each year, perhaps forever. Next month, Grand Valley State University will celebrate 50 years of student newspapers on campus. The Langhorn's goal is to raise $50,000 for the Merit Awards Fund. It's going to be a student-run effort, a bootstrap operation. I believe they're going to do it. A motivated newspaper staff can do anything. My name is Lawrence Beery, and I'm a student newspaper advisor.
This single line from the CMA Adviser's Professional Code sums up Allison's stance on advising. There should never be an instance where an advisor maximizes quality by minimizing learning. Her mentor and former supervisor John Bennett would regularly refer to student media as a fail lab, citing this particular line from the Professional Code. When she initially was hired as the assistant director for student media at SCAD, it was the beginning of a 6-week-long winter academic break, and there were no students around. When people asked her about her new job, Allison didn't know how to describe it because she had not yet interacted with any students. But even now, after 5 years as an advisor, she still doesn't know how to succinctly describe her career. There are so many facets to the role of an advisor, like educator, therapist, event planner, surrogate mother, accountant, travel coordinator, career counselor, First Amendment advocate, and the list goes on. But all of these roles go back to the same basic idea: supporting students and fostering an environment where they feel comfortable learning and experimenting. A large part of the job is to recognize the potential in her students, to see not necessarily what they can accomplish when they first walk in the door, but what they have the ability to accomplish, and then help to build their confidence so they can cultivate those abilities and reach their goals. Fail Lab is an apt description, as Allison encourages her students to try their hands at everything. A student might walk into student media as just a writer, but she wants him to eventually walk out into the professional world as a multimedia journalist. She wants them to try photography, video, audio, graphic design, even comics, while they're still college students. Sometimes the first audio story a writer produces is poor, and sometimes the first story a photographer writes needs a lot of work. But at least they accepted the challenge of working outside of their comfort zones. Allison embraces the idea that as institutes of higher learning, colleges should always be places for experimentation and growth. And she enjoys working with the students who are always looking at how other media organizations are doing things and asking, how can we do even better? During the summer of 2013, she left her position with the SCAD Student Media Center to take on the advising role at Appalachian State University in Boone, North Carolina. While the universities may vary in history and size, she's found that the role of the advisor is still the same. The same principles that directed her career at SCAD she's found are applicable at a larger public university, and the students' passion for their work is the same. Allison strives to ensure that students have such a positive and worthwhile experience in student media that they care about future generations of students and freely give of their time and advice. She works to nurture lasting beneficial relationships with students and alumni so there is a widespread network of student media support. She loves to see alumni cheering on current students when she posts on Facebook about their latest awards and having alumni reach out with internship and job opportunities for current students. It just proves to her that what they can do in student media is worthwhile and lasting, and that she is so lucky to serve as an advisor.
My advising philosophy is pretty simple. No college media organization can be truly student-run unless students have real and significant responsibility to manage the organization on a daily basis. That is precisely what my students are given at WSOU. Hands-on responsibility with the authority to make decisions and live with the consequences, good or bad. I often describe my role as being the adult on duty, one who works closely with the administration to ensure the students who participate at WSOU are free to run the station as they best see fit. Thus, I am a guide rather than a boss. Unless my students risk violating FCC rules or running afoul of university policies, the station's student leadership is able to make their own judgments. Students grow and mature best when they are empowered to make decisions and allowed to enjoy their successes and learn from their mistakes. I also have an open door policy. My office door is rarely closed, and students may, and do, talk with me about anything. In an era when human interactions have become coarse, confrontational, and distant, it's essential to model that listening, attentiveness, kindness, and just being present are essential values. Helping students develop these skills make them more effective leaders. As an FCC licensed radio station, we operate in a highly regulated environment that many student media outlets, like a college newspaper, do not. Furthermore, WSOU is part of a Catholic university, which subjects the station to guidelines and boundaries that may not be present at a public institution or a more secular private university. So a key component of my advising role is to help students see that the federal and university policies are not handcuffs, but essential elements of the learning process. That WSOU is a thriving, award-winning, heavy metal radio station at a Catholic university, yes, you heard that right, demonstrates that the environment the students have created allows for a tremendous amount of freedom of expression. If I can only use one word to summarize my advising philosophy, then I choose mentor. Each day, I do my best to provide students with wisdom, encouragement, and opportunities for professional and personal growth. That's an advisor's job in a nutshell.
Maybe like most advisors, when I first started in 2001, I didn't know what I was doing. So I started attending these college media conferences. The conferences helped me in many important ways. Well, two of them were that, for one thing, they served to inform and motivate my students, but also they were instrumental in educating me. I was told, and I saw it written, that advisors should advise and not dictate. And that was probably the most important thing that I paid attention to. From my first conference on, every issue of the magazine became the product of the student editor's visions, not mine. Every generation has to find its voice. They need a way to express their creativity. My Ambience, our literary arts magazine, provides them that. It becomes that vehicle to make an outlet for their creativity possible. My hope is that by helping them work together as a team, they can produce a magazine that reflects their values and aesthetics. Although I don't impose mine or my generation's ideas on them, it doesn't mean I abandon them. In fact, I'm always there. I suppose you could call my philosophy hovering without a sound. I am always watching and making sure they're working and moving forward. I'm there when they need me.
My name is Rachel Wedding McClelland, and in my work at Indiana State University, I teach media, public relations courses, and I advise the student newspaper and the yearbook. And I have to say, it is the most rewarding work I've ever done. When I get to know a student who flounders with the idea of writing a news story, and then through the process of a semester or two ends up having their work printed in a newspaper or appearing on our news channels, there's simply no greater reward than assisting a student through this accomplishment. And as much as I enjoy teaching students the basics of news, I often tell people that that's about 10 to 15% of my job. The rest of my time is spent counseling students through life situations related to problem solving or working with difficult people or time management. Sometimes the counseling even involves issues related to difficult family relationships or personal struggles. That's all a part of the advising hat that I wear. If I could summarize for you my advising philosophy or my teaching philosophy, I'd have to tell you that I strive to create situations in which my students can learn by doing. As an advisor, I get to sit on the front lines and watch that happen. It's a method of reflective practice that in the news environment equates to students succeeding or failing while the whole world watches. Yes, my students who learn by doing are allowed to fail. I encourage students to analyze their failures through discussions about what went wrong, what can be done to remedy the situation, and how their failure might be avoided in the future. But I believe that students of reflective practice more often actually succeed. With an ever-changing student staff, I've come to accept that I will never reach the point at which my staff is fully trained. And even though I tend to be a control freak, I'm okay with the idea of a staff that's not fully trained. What I will continue to strive for is to serve as an integral stop on my students' journeys in how to manage others and behave professionally and ethically. And I consider it a privilege to be able to witness their growth on this journey.
Hi, I'm Max McCoy, an associate professor of journalism at Emporia State University and advisor to the campus newspaper, The Bulletin. I've been asked to say a few words about my advising philosophy, and because I understand these remarks are meant to be brief, I'll try not to bury the lead. It comes down to this: be an advocate. A good student publication is a lightning rod for controversy. An advisor's role is to vigorously defend the rights of the student press, educate others on why independent journalism is important, and explain why aggressive reporting and sometimes unpopular opinion deserve special protection in a free society. When your staff does a good job, be liberal with your praise, both with them and with others on campus. But when your staff falls short, don't pull punches. Have a clear-eyed conversation with them, stressing the need for accuracy and accountability, but keep your criticism and your critiques in the newsroom. Don't be drawn into the trap, favored by administrators, of being forced into a conversation about whether the students are producing good journalism. You're never going to win the argument over last week's sex column. Instead, reframe the conversation. Talk about how the student press has rights that by law must not be abridged, at least not on a public campus. That the staff isn't producing a newspaper to satisfy the old folks in the administration. You might also remind critics the kind of courage it takes in this age of electronic anonymity for a student to write a signed piece on a controversial subject. Student journalists are subjected to the kind of public pressure that few other students face. They're still learning, but their work is often the object of intense scrutiny and harsh campus criticism. It takes talent, tenacity, and guts to be a student journalist. Encourage your staff to tackle significant local subjects. Show them how to file an open records request. Urge them to be sensitive to those in pain, to be tough with those in power, and to be dogged in their pursuit of the truth. Teach them the value of being fair. I often tell my students that I don't believe in objectivity because journalists are human beings with inherent biases. We can't be objective because we're not machines, but what we can be is fair. We can make sure that quotes are accurate, that we are honest and direct with sources, and that we keep our promises. This all goes to credibility. And all a journalist really has is her credibility. We should encourage our students to tell the unpleasant truths, be unafraid to challenge powerful interests, and to raise hell as needed. So on behalf of all of my brilliant and precocious and sometimes difficult and always wonderful students, I take pride in accepting this award. Thank you.
More than 43 years ago, I started with college media as editor-in-chief of the Daily Skiff at TCU in Fort Worth, Texas. We set our copy on an old linotype machine and hand-set all headlines 24 points and above by pulling blocks of type from drawers. It was the middle of the Vietnam War, so we had a lot to cover. I remember I sent a telegram, no, not a tweet, to President Nixon asking him to take me on his trip to China as a student journalist. He didn't answer. And it's when I attended my first national convention, just like this one. So I hope you understand how very humbled and honored I am today to receive this College Media Association Distinguished 2-Year Newspaper Adviser Award. I never planned to be a teacher, yet I'm serving in my 37th year teaching journalism and advising student media. When I arrived at Laramie County Community College in Cheyenne, Wyoming, the department had 2 manual typewriters. Soon the newsroom was filled with electric ones, although they were not correctable, and students set type on one compographic machine and pasted up the student newspaper wingspan on light tables. In 1985, when we started desktop publishing, our 286 computers were so slow, students could hand-edit copy at the same time. Now we boast a state-of-the-art newsroom, have published online for almost 20 years, and operate a TV station. However, nothing's really changed about being a faculty advisor, especially at a community college, where I am thrilled to see a few of the same faces on staff from semester to semester. So, what's the key to advising? I simply set almost impossibly high standards for the staff, and then empower them. And you know, they will always rise to those standards and higher. Then ultimately, you've established a tradition. As I record this, Wingspan staffers just finished their first edition of the fall semester. At 4 in the morning, sheltered in place, working through a raging 1,000-year rainstorm that left parts of the Front Range of the Rockies flooded and isolated. But oh God, this is so much fun.